The sun had just dipped below the horizon, leaving the sky painted in shades of orange and purple. Aaron walked along the edge of the forest that surrounded the colony. His boots sank slightly into the soft soil and the air smelled of pine and wet earth. The colony itself was quiet, with most settlers already inside their homes or working on last-minute tasks before night fell. But Aaron had a feeling that tonight would be different. He always felt different when he came near the forest. Something about it called to him, and he could not ignore the feeling that he was being watched. Aaron had always been a curious person. From the day he arrived at the colony, he had wandered into places others avoided, explored small caves and mapped paths through the thick woods. The colonists often warned him to be careful, but he could never stay away from the mysteries that the forest seemed to hold. That evening he carried only a small lantern and his utility knife. The sky was clearing and stars began to appear one by one. The forest looked inviting and dangerous at the same time, and Aaron felt the familiar mix of excitement and fear. As he stepped into the first line of trees, he noticed something strange. The ground had been disturbed in unusual patterns. It was not like the tracks of deer or other forest animals. The prints were large and they had sharp claw marks that seemed too deep to belong to any creature he knew. Aaron crouched and studied them. The soil was soft, so the marks were clear. He touched one carefully with his fingers, feeling the rough impressions. Whoever or whatever had made these marks was big and strong. A sudden sound made him freeze. A branch snapped somewhere deeper in the forest. Aaron's heart raced. He whispered to himself, "It's probably just a deer." But he knew it was not. There was a rhythm in the sounds, a deliberate movement that no normal animal made. He took a slow step forward, scanning the darkness between the trees. Then he heard it, a low growl that vibrated through the ground. Aaron's eyes widened and he felt a shiver run down his spine. The growl was not ordinary. It carried intelligence and it was meant to warn him. He wanted to call for help, but his voice caught in his throat. A rustle came from above. He looked up and saw a figure moving gracefully through the branches. It was humanoid, but covered in silver fur that shimmered even in the dim light. Its eyes glowed amber, and its ears were pointed like a wolf's. It leaped from the trees and landed lightly on the ground in front of him. Aaron stumbled backward, nearly dropping his lantern. The creature tilted its head, observing him carefully. Then it spoke in broken human words. "You, mine." The voice was soft but firm, carrying a strange authority. Aaron could not move. Fear held him in place. The alien wolf girl's claws scraped the soil, but she did not attack. Her glowing eyes studied him as if trying to see his thoughts. Then she turned and vanished into the trees, moving faster than anything humanly possible. Aaron stood frozen, trying to process what had just happened. When he returned to the colony, no one believed him. The settlers laughed, calling it a trick of the light or his imagination. But Aaron knew it was real. He could still feel the intensity of her gaze, and the words, "You, mine," echoed in his mind. For the next few days, Aaron could not stop thinking about the wolf girl. He avoided the forest at first, but curiosity gnawed at him. He needed to understand what he had seen. The colony continued its quiet life, but Aaron's thoughts were restless. Every night he returned to the forest's edge, hoping for another encounter. On the third night he found her again. This time she did not leap from the trees but waited at a clearing, partially hidden by shadows. Her glowing eyes watched him, and her body was tense, ready to flee or attack depending on his actions. Aaron approached slowly, keeping his hands visible. "I'm not going to hurt you," he said softly. The wolf girl tilted her head. She responded in the same broken human speech. "Trust or danger?" Aaron nodded, trying to communicate that he meant no harm. Over time, he noticed her posture relax slightly. She left signs of her presence. Strange carvings on the ground, small piles of food, and patterns that seemed to tell a story. Aaron began to understand that she was intelligent. Not only intelligent, but aware, careful, and perhaps lonely. Her name was Rhina. That was what she finally communicated after many attempts. She belonged to an ancient race that had lived on this world long before humans arrived. Her people had once roamed freely, protecting the forest and the creatures that lived there. Now she was nearly alone, the last of her kind in many ways. She explained in simple words that she had claimed him. It was a tradition among her people, a bond of protection and trust. She had seen courage in Aaron and she believed he could help her. Aaron was both amazed and confused. He had never believed in traditions like this. Yet standing before Rhina, he felt a strange sense of destiny. He knew that life in the colony would never be the same again. Each encounter with her revealed more about her world and her people. She moved with grace and speed, communicating through gestures and words, showing him parts of the forest that he had never noticed. They began spending time together at the edge of the colony, learning from each other. One night, as they sat near a small stream, Rhina revealed something alarming. There were enemies beyond the stars, invaders who had hunted her people and destroyed many settlements. They were powerful and relentless, and they could return to this world at any time. Aaron listened carefully, realizing that her warning was not just about the forest. The colony itself could be in danger. The thought of the settlers being attacked made him determined. He wanted to protect them, but he also wanted to protect Rhina. Over the following days, Aran tried to warn the colony leaders. They shook their heads, refusing to take his concerns seriously. They saw Rhina as a strange creature, a threat rather than a protector. But Aaron could not ignore her. He returned to the forest, meeting her in secret, and they began to prepare quietly. She taught him how to move silently, how to sense the forest, and how to understand the signs of approaching danger. He felt himself becoming stronger and faster, guided by her instincts and knowledge. The bond between them grew. Aaron began to trust Rhina completely, and she trusted him. The fear that had gripped him during their first encounter faded, replaced by respect and understanding. Yet he could not help but feel the weight of responsibility. The colony was unprepared, and he alone could not face the dangers that Rhina had warned him about. They had to find a way to alert the settlers without causing panic or disbelief. One evening, the sky darkened unnaturally, and a low hum filled the air. Rhina's ears twitched and her eyes glowed brighter. She pressed a paw to Aaron's shoulder, signaling him to be silent. From the edge of the forest, they could see lights moving in the distance beyond the hills where the colony's fields lay. Rhina growled softly, a warning that the danger was near. Aaron's heart pounded. For the first time, he understood that the stories she had told him were real. Something was coming, and it was not friendly. They retreated to a hidden grove where they could observe without being seen. Rhina crouched low, muscles tense, ready to move at a moment's notice. Aaron mirrored her stance, feeling both fear and determination. They watched as the lights approached, machines landing on the outskirts of the colony and shadowy figures disembarking. Aaron realized that this was what she had warned about. The settlers were in immediate danger, and he had to act. But how could he convince them to listen to him now when they had doubted him before? As the first sounds of movement reached their ears, Aaron felt Rhina's presence beside him. She had chosen him, claimed him in her way, and now they would face this challenge together. The fear that had once held him frozen transformed into resolve. He could not ignore her trust, nor could he abandon the colony he had called home. Together, they would confront the unknown threat. Together, they would survive. And in that moment, Aaron understood that his life, and the colony's future, was forever intertwined with the alien wolf girl who had chosen him. Night settled fully over the forest. Stars twinkled above as if watching the bond that had formed between human and wolf girl. The sounds of the approaching danger echoed faintly through the trees, but Aaron no longer felt powerless. He had found an ally stronger than any human, faster and wiser, and she had chosen him as her companion. Whatever came next, he would not face it alone. Rhina growled softly, a sound that promised protection and warning, and Aaron felt a strange comfort in her presence. He knew that the forest held secrets, but with her, he could face them all. In the quiet before the storm, Aaron and Rhina sat together, waiting, watching, and preparing for the night that would change everything. The next morning, the colony awoke to a crisp sky and the soft hum of daily activity. Farmers tended to their crops while children played along the edges of cleared land. Aaron, however, did not join them. He rose before dawn and made his way back to the forest, guided by instinct. The encounter with Rhina the previous night had left a mark on him. He could not shake the memory of her glowing eyes or the intensity of the bond she had begun to form with him. Something inside him told him that the danger approaching was closer than anyone suspected, and he needed her guidance more than ever. As he entered the forest, sunlight streamed through the branches, casting long shadows across the mossy ground. He found Rhina waiting at the usual clearing, her silver fur glinting in the light. She crouched low, tail brushing the soil, and her eyes reflected the first rays of the sun, When she saw him, she gave a small nod, a gesture of recognition and trust. Aaron approached slowly, careful not to startle her. "We need to prepare," he said quietly. "Something is coming, and I think it will be here soon." Rhina tilted her head, her ears flicking in thought. Then she stepped closer, brushing against his arm in a sign of assurance. Rhina led him deeper into the forest, to a place Aaron had never dared to explore. The trees were taller here, older, and their roots twisted together, forming natural tunnels and hidden pathways. Aaron followed silently, watching how Rhina moved with incredible grace. She seemed to know every tree, every branch, every hidden nook. Aaron realized that she was more than just strong. She had a connection to the forest itself, as if it obeyed her commands. Birds and small creatures scattered as she passed, yet she left no lasting trace of her presence. Finally, they arrived at a wide clearing, encircled by thick trees. In the center stood a series of stone formations, weathered by time but arranged in a deliberate pattern. Rhina gestured toward them, indicating that this was a place of importance. Aaron examined the stones and noticed carvings that resembled constellations and symbols he could not recognize. Rhina placed her hands on the stones, tracing the carvings with sharp claws. She spoke in broken words. "Plan, defense, raiders." Aaron listened carefully, piecing together her meaning. The place was a strategic location, a natural vantage point to observe the colony and the surrounding forest. Aaron nodded, understanding the urgency. "We can use this to watch them before they get too close," he said. Rhina responded with a soft growl, a sound that carried agreement and satisfaction. Over the next several hours, they mapped the surrounding forest. Aaron marked pathways that could be used to move quickly, while Rhina indicated areas where they could hide or create natural traps. The synergy between human and wolf girl became evident. Each had strengths the other lacked, and together they could plan more than either could alone. As they worked, Aaron asked her questions about her people. Rhina explained that her kind had once protected the forests of this world, living in harmony with nature. They had skills humans had never developed: heightened senses, incredible agility, and the ability to communicate with the land in subtle ways. But her people had been nearly destroyed by a group of raiders who sought to conquer their worlds and claim resources. Rhina had survived by hiding, learning to move silently and avoiding capture. She had watched the colony for days before choosing Aaron. She had seen courage and a sense of justice in him, qualities rare among humans she had observed. By mid-afternoon, Aaron and Rhina had completed a detailed plan. They would set up observation points, prepare the settlers for a possible attack without revealing the full danger, and use the forest itself as a natural defense. Aaron was surprised at how effective the plan was. Rhina suggested using the terrain to funnel any attackers into narrow pathways, where their numbers would count for little. She also indicated places where they could hide supplies and water, ensuring the colony could survive if cut off. Rhina then demonstrated some of her skills. She climbed a tall tree in seconds, disappearing from view, and leapt down to land silently in front of Aaron. She moved with such speed and precision that it left him breathless. "You need to trust instinct," she said, her voice soft. "Forest tells everything." Aaron tried to mimic her movements, but he stumbled and fell, laughing at his own clumsiness. Rhina tilted her head, then nudged him gently, encouraging him. She showed him how to listen to the subtle sounds of the forest, how to notice slight changes in the wind, and how to predict movement based on shadows and rustling leaves. As evening approached, the sky deepened into shades of violet and red. Aaron and Rhina returned to the colony cautiously. He observed the settlers going about their daily routines, unaware of the danger approaching. Aaron felt a strange mixture of protectiveness and anxiety. He could not yet reveal Rhina to everyone, not until he was certain they would understand her value. He had already faced disbelief and mockery when he tried to explain her existence. This time he decided he would wait, gather proof, and act when necessary. That night he returned to the forest alone to check the perimeter, as Rhina had instructed. He walked silently, recalling her lessons. Each sound, each movement seemed amplified. The forest no longer felt ordinary. It felt alive in a way he had never noticed before. He paused at a small creek, listening for ripples or footsteps. The night was calm, yet he could sense a tension in the air, a warning that the calm would not last. He knew that when the raiders arrived, the first strike would be swift and unexpected. Suddenly, a noise broke the silence. A branch snapped somewhere deeper in the woods. Aaron froze, remembering the growl of the previous night. Then he saw movement in the shadows. A figure stepped forward. It was Rhina, her fur reflecting the moonlight. She approached him with a silent grace, stopping just short of him. Her eyes glowed amber, and she lowered her head slightly, a gesture of reassurance. Aaron felt his pulse quicken. He realized how much he had come to rely on her presence. She was not just an ally. She was a guide, a protector, and perhaps a friend. Rhina led Aaron to a hidden hollow beneath an old oak tree. Inside there was a small nest of soft leaves and moss. Aaron crouched, examining the space. Rhina gestured toward a set of carvings on the wall of the hollow. They depicted scenes of her people's battles, hunts, and rituals. Aaron traced the carvings with his fingers, feeling a connection to the past. He understood that Rhina's people had not been weak. They had been strategic, intelligent, and deeply connected to their environment. She had survived not just because of strength, but because of knowledge and instinct passed down through generations. They spent the night in the hollow, sharing stories and plans. Aaron told Rhina about the colony, the settlers, and their routines. She listened intently, occasionally tilting her head or making a soft growl to indicate understanding. Aaron realized that this bond was more than one-sided. Rhina trusted him to carry knowledge back to the colony and to act with wisdom. In turn, he trusted her to guide him and keep him safe in the forest. They fell into a quiet rhythm, two beings learning from each other, preparing for what was to come. Morning arrived with a faint mist over the forest. Aaron and Rhina moved through the trees, checking the routes they had marked the day before. The forest seemed more alive than ever, responding to Rhina's presence. Birds took flight, small animals scurried away, and even the wind seemed to shift slightly as they passed. Aaron felt a thrill of power and responsibility. He was learning to see the world in a new way, to understand the delicate balance of nature and strategy that Rhina had mastered. By midday, they had returned to the colony. Aaron approached cautiously, carrying a message from Rhina to the leaders. He spoke carefully, describing strange tracks, signs of movement, and the intelligence of the creature in the forest. At first, the colonists resisted, but when Aaron demonstrated knowledge that only someone who had observed the forest closely could know, they began to listen. Rhina stepped forward, emerging from the trees with her glowing eyes fixed on the settlers. There was a tense moment of silence. The colonists stared, unsure whether to trust her. Then Rhina demonstrated her speed and strength, moving through the clearing and showing them that she could act with precision and control. The settlers' skepticism slowly turned into respect. Aaron stood beside her, explaining that she had chosen him and that her knowledge could save them. It was a turning point. For the first time, the colony began to understand that the forest was not just a dangerous place, but also a source of protection and power if guided correctly. As evening fell, Aaron and Rhina returned to the forest, leaving the colonists to digest what they had seen. Aaron felt a sense of purpose growing within him. The bond between him and Rhina was no longer a secret or a curiosity. It was a partnership, a union of human courage and alien instinct. He knew that together they could face the dangers ahead and protect the colony from the threats that loomed beyond the horizon. That night, as stars filled the sky, Aaron and Rhina sat together at their hidden hollow, listening to the sounds of the forest. The rustle of leaves, the distant call of birds, and the whisper of wind through the trees became a symphony of preparation. Aaron felt ready, not just for the coming danger, but for the adventure and challenges that lay ahead. With Rhina by his side, he was no longer just a scout. He was part of something greater, something powerful. The morning sky was pale and still, with only the soft rustling of trees breaking the silence. Aaron awoke early, his mind racing with thoughts of the previous night. Rhina had stayed close, watching him with her glowing amber eyes as he prepared for the day. They had spent hours in the forest, studying its paths, setting markers, and learning how to move without leaving a trace. Today would be different. Aaron could feel it in his bones. The danger Rhina had warned about was coming, and he needed to be ready. He made his way to the colony cautiously, moving along paths only he and Rhina knew. The settlers were beginning their routines, unaware of the shadow that loomed beyond their fields. Aaron watched them, noting their movements, their tools, and the weak points in the perimeter. He knew that if the threat arrived suddenly, The colony could be caught unprepared. The buildings were sturdy, but the people were mostly farmers and craftsmen, not trained warriors. Aaron felt the weight of responsibility settle on his shoulders. Rena appeared silently at his side, her presence reassuring. She spoke in her broken but clear words. Danger. Close, must prepare. Aaron nodded. They moved to the edge of the forest where they had established observation points. From here they could see the distant hills, the open plains, and the first signs of movement. Small lights flickered on the horizon, reflecting off the polished surfaces of machines. Aaron's stomach tightened. The raiders had arrived. Rena's ears twitched and her tail flicked. She crouched low, muscles tense, ready to spring into action. Aaron mirrored her stance, feeling the rhythm of the forest through the soles of his boots. They observed the raiders' approach, noting the speed and precision of their movements. Machines rolled across the plains, carrying armed figures who moved with deadly efficiency. Aaron realized that these were not ordinary invaders. They were trained, organized, and dangerous. The colony would not stand against them without guidance and strategy. Rena motioned to Aaron, signaling him to follow her. They slipped through the forest, staying just out of sight, moving closer to the raiders. Aaron marveled at her skill, watching how she used the trees for cover, leapt silently over obstacles, and read the terrain as if it were a map in her mind. She led him to a small rise overlooking the raiders' landing site. From this vantage point, they could see every movement. Aaron's heart pounded. He had never seen anything like it. The raiders were setting up perimeter devices and scanning the area for life.
Any mistake could alert them to the colony's presence. We must act fast, Rena said.
Humans, not ready. Must protect. Aaron nodded, understanding that they had little time. They returned to the colony quietly, avoiding paths where raiders might see them. Once inside, Aaron faced a difficult challenge. He needed to convince the settlers to prepare without causing panic. He gathered the leaders in the central hall, speaking urgently about the signs he and Rina had observed. Some leaders were skeptical, but Aaron presented details only someone who had observed the forest closely could know. He described the tracks, the movements, and the distant lights. Slowly, their disbelief began to waver. Then Rina stepped forward, emerging from the shadows of the hall. Her glowing eyes drew gasps from the crowd. Some stepped back in fear, but Aaron urged them to trust her. She is not here to harm us, he said. She knows the enemy and can help us survive. Rina demonstrated her abilities, moving swiftly and precisely, showing how she could track and anticipate movements. The settlers watched in awe as she leapt from one end of the hall to the other, landing silently and gracefully. The fear in their eyes turned to respect, and they began to listen. Over the next few hours, Aaron and Rina organized the colony's defenses. They assigned positions to the settlers, using the terrain to their advantage. Farmers with farming tools were positioned in narrow pathways where they could slow down raiders. Stronger individuals took strategic points along the edges of the forest. Rina demonstrated how to use the environment for protection, fallen branches as barriers, natural pits for traps, and hidden paths for quick movement. Aaron felt a sense of unity building among the settlers. For the first time, they were acting as a team, guided by knowledge and strategy rather than fear. As the sun climbed higher, the raiders began their approach toward the colony. They moved in disciplined formations, unaware that their movements were being tracked. Rina led small groups of settlers along hidden paths, observing the raiders' approach and relaying information to Aaron. Together, they created signals and markers to warn of enemy movement. The settlers, once untrained and hesitant, began to act with precision, guided by Aaron's instructions and Rina's instincts. The first encounter came in the early afternoon. A small squad of raiders advanced ahead of the main group, seeking to scout the area. Aaron and Rina watched as they moved through the edge of the forest. Rina signaled Aaron to wait. Then, with a swift motion, she darted from the trees, silently taking down one raider before he could react. The others spun around, startled, but Rina moved with such speed and agility that they could not catch her. She disappeared into the forest again, leaving the raiders confused and disoriented. Aaron used this moment to lead a group of settlers along a hidden path to flank the squad. Using the natural cover of the forest, they forced the raiders to retreat, showing them that the colony was not defenseless. The main raider force was still approaching. Aaron returned to the colony's center, coordinating positions and preparing for the larger battle. Rina remained at the edge of the forest, scanning for any signs of danger. The settlers, inspired by the small victory, moved with determination. Fear had been replaced with courage, and trust in their alien ally grew stronger. Aaron realized that the bond between humans and Rhina was becoming a symbol of hope. As the raiders' main force neared, the ground trembled slightly from the weight of their machines. Aaron and Rhina signaled to the settlers to hold positions and stay calm. The raiders spread out, advancing in formation, but the terrain had been prepared to slow them down. Fallen logs, pits, and narrow paths forced the raiders to move in ways that limited their advantage. Rhina darted through the trees, observing every movement, communicating silently with Aaron through gestures and subtle sounds. They were working as a single unit, human and alien, guiding the settlers to maximize their effectiveness. The first clash came when the raiders reached the edge of the colony. A group of settlers, armed with makeshift weapons, engaged the invaders in narrow paths. Rhina moved swiftly among them, protecting weaker individuals and taking down raiders who tried to break through. Her movements were fluid and precise, a combination of instinct and training passed down through generations. Aaron used his human skills with weapons, coordinating strikes and setting traps that slowed the raiders' advance. The forest itself seemed to respond to their presence, giving them advantage and cover. Hours passed in a tense battle. The raiders were persistent and well-trained, but the colony's preparation and Rhina's guidance turned the tide. Every time a raider thought they had the advantage, they found themselves facing unexpected resistance. Aaron led small groups to outflank the invaders while Rhina struck from unexpected angles. The settlers gained confidence with every successful defense. Aaron noticed how their fear was replaced with determination, a reflection of the bond they shared with Rhina and the trust they placed in her guidance. By late afternoon, the raiders began to retreat, realizing that the colony was not an easy target. The coordinated defense, led by Aaron and Rhina, had forced them to reconsider their approach. As they pulled back, the settlers cheered quietly, exhausted but relieved. Rhina appeared at the edge of the clearing, her silver fur shining in the late sun, and gave a low, satisfied growl. Aaron approached her, feeling a mixture of pride and gratitude. Together they had protected the colony, proving that unity and courage could overcome even the most formidable foes. The aftermath of the battle left the colony shaken but hopeful. Aaron and Rhina moved among the settlers, helping tend to minor injuries and encouraging them to rebuild defenses. The bond between human and alien wolf girl had become a symbol of strength and protection. Settlers who had once doubted Aaron now looked to him for guidance, recognizing his courage and leadership. Rhina's presence, once feared and mysterious, was now respected and valued. As night fell, Aaron and Rhina returned to their hidden hollow in the forest. They were tired but satisfied. The forest was quiet now, the only sounds the gentle rustling of leaves and distant calls of nocturnal animals. Aaron reflected on the day's events. The colony had survived its first real threat because of their combined efforts. He realized that this was only the beginning. The raiders would return stronger and more determined, but now he knew they were not alone. They had Rhina, and together, they could face whatever challenges lay ahead. Rhina lay beside him, her amber eyes glowing softly. She nuzzled his shoulder, a gesture of trust and companionship. Aaron smiled, feeling a sense of peace in her presence. He knew that the coming days would test them further, but he also knew that their bond had grown stronger through battle, strategy, and shared purpose. Together they would protect the colony, face the raiders, and explore the mysteries of the forest. In the quiet of the forest night, Aaron understood the truth of Rhina's words from long ago. The morning air was tense, carrying a quiet warning that the raiders would return. Aaron stood on a small rise overlooking the colony. Rhina crouched beside him, ears flicking and eyes scanning the horizon. The events of the previous day had left both of them alert and prepared, but neither could relax. The raiders had been forced to retreat, but they were clever and relentless. Aaron knew they would return stronger and more determined. The colony depended on them, and failure was not an option. The settlers were already preparing for the worst. After seeing Rhina in action and surviving the first encounter, they had begun to trust in her guidance and Aaron's leadership. They reinforced their buildings, sharpened weapons, and cleared paths through the forest that could be used as traps or defensive positions. Children and the elderly were moved to safer areas, while able-bodied settlers trained under Aaron and Rhina's supervision. Aaron watched the progress with a mixture of pride and concern. Every person who gained confidence strengthened the colony's chances, but he knew the raiders would not be easy to stop. Rhina rose, her silver fur gleaming in the rising sun. She moved toward Aaron and touched his shoulder with her paw. "Must prepare. Ready," she said in her broken human speech. Aaron nodded. Together, they moved through the forest, checking the observation points they had created and reviewing the signals and markers that would warn the settlers of approaching danger. Every tree, bush, and rock had been considered for strategy. Aaron had learned much from Rhina's instincts, understanding how to use the terrain to their advantage and anticipate enemy movement. By midday, distant hums reached their ears. The raiders were returning. Aaron felt the familiar tightening of his chest but steadied himself. "They are coming," he said. Rhina's eyes glowed brighter and she crouched low, muscles tensing. They slipped through the trees toward the edge of the colony, staying out of sight, ready to guide the settlers into their defensive positions. The forest seemed alive with anticipation, and Aaron felt the power of the bond between him and Rhina, strengthening with every step. The first contact came as the raiders reached the outskirts. Machines moved in tight formation, carrying heavily armed troops. Rhina darted through the forest, observing their movements, while Aaron coordinated the defenders. Settlers took positions along narrow paths and reinforced barricades. Rhina leapt silently from tree to tree, striking swiftly at raiders who attempted to break through. Her speed and agility were unmatched. Every movement she made was calculated, precise, and effective. Aaron used his knowledge of human weapons to target vulnerable points in the raiders' formation, combining human skill with Rhina's instinct. The battle intensified as more raiders approached. Their machines began to fire upon the colony, sending sparks and smoke into the air. Aaron led groups of settlers to flank the attackers, using natural cover and hidden paths to surprise them. Rhina moved through the chaos with unmatched grace, protecting settlers, taking down raiders and creating openings for human defenders to strike. The forest itself seemed to aid them, branches and roots slowing raiders, hiding defenders, and creating confusion. Aaron realized that the bond between humans and Rhina was more than strategy. It was a combination of courage, instinct, and unity that the raiders could not overcome. As the battle continued, a sudden explosion rocked the colony's perimeter. A raider machine had broken through one of the barricades. Aaron ran toward the site, Rhina following closely. The machine was massive, designed to crush obstacles and force entry. Settlers froze in fear, but Rhina leapt onto the machine, claws digging into its surface, tearing away parts and disrupting its function. Aaron fired at its controls, using precise shots to disable its weapons. The settlers, inspired by their bravery, joined in, using tools and tactics they had been taught. Together, Human and Wolf Girl brought the machine down, sending it crashing into the ground. The raiders were regrouping, attempting to push forward, but Aaron and Rhina were ready. They had anticipated this move. Rhina signaled to Aaron, who guided a group of settlers into hidden positions. They attacked from the flanks, striking at vulnerable points and forcing the raiders to retreat once more. Aaron's heart pounded as he moved through the battlefield, coordinating attacks, ensuring the settlers remained safe, and trusting Rhina's guidance. The Wolf Girl's presence was a constant source of strength. Her glowing eyes, swift movements, and calculated strikes inspired everyone to act with courage. Hours passed in intense combat. The raiders pressed forward using heavy weapons and advanced tactics, but the defenders held. Rhina moved tirelessly, protecting settlers and neutralizing threats. Aaron adapted quickly, using his knowledge of the colony's layout to create traps and ambush points. The settlers, once fearful and inexperienced, now fought with determination, guided by trust in their leaders and the alien Wolf Girl. Aaron realized that the battle was not just about survival. It was about proving that humans and Rhina, working together, could overcome even the most formidable enemy. At one point, Aaron found himself cornered by a group of raiders. They had surrounded him near a narrow path, and escape seemed impossible. Rhina appeared from above, leaping silently onto one of the attackers, claws striking with deadly precision. The raiders panicked as she moved among them, unpredictable and fast. Aaron took advantage of the distraction, using his weapon to disable 2 more raiders. Together, they turned what seemed like a hopeless situation into a victory. Aaron felt a surge of relief and pride. They were stronger together than they could ever be apart. As the day wore on, the raiders began to falter. Their machines were damaged, their troops exhausted, and their strategies foiled by the combined efforts of humans and Rena. Aaron coordinated a final push, guiding settlers to reclaim ground and secure the colony's perimeter. Rhina led strikes at critical points, her speed and instinct turning the tide of the battle. The raiders, realizing they could not win, began to retreat. Smoke and dust filled the air, but the defenders held their positions triumphant. The colony had survived. Settlers cheered quietly, exhausted but relieved. Aaron moved among them, ensuring everyone was safe, helping tend minor injuries and reinforcing defenses. Rhina, her fur glistening with sweat and dust, gave a low growl of satisfaction. The settlers, who had once doubted Aaron and feared Rhina, now looked at them with respect and gratitude. The bond between human and wolf girl had become a symbol of hope, courage, and unity. That night, as the sun set and stars began to twinkle in the sky, Aaron and Rhina returned to their hidden hollow in the forest. They were tired but content. The battle had tested them, their skills and their trust, but it had also strengthened their connection. Aaron reflected on the events of the day. The colony had survived because they had worked together. Rhina's instincts, speed, and knowledge had saved lives, and the settlers' courage, guided by Aaron, had made victory possible. Rhina lay beside him, tail brushing his arm. Her amber eyes glowed softly, reflecting the fading light. Aaron understood the depth of her bond. Being claimed was not about control. It was about trust, protection, and shared purpose. He had seen it in action today. The bond between them had saved the colony and proved that humans and her kind could accomplish extraordinary things when united. Aran and Rhina spent the rest of the night planning. They knew the raiders could return, perhaps even stronger. They discussed strategies, reinforced traps, and prepared signals for early warning. The settlers, inspired by the day's success, were ready to learn more, to act as a team and to defend their home. Aaron felt a renewed sense of purpose. He was no longer just a scout or a messenger. He was a leader, a protector, and Rhina's partner in ensuring the survival of their community. As the forest settled into quiet night, Aaron and Rhina sat together in the hollow, watching the stars. The air was calm, filled with the sounds of nocturnal creatures. Aaron felt a sense of peace despite the battles fought and the dangers still ahead. The bond they shared was strong, tested by fire and combat, and it would guide them through whatever challenges lay beyond. He realized that the colony's survival depended not just on weapons or machines, but on courage, trust, and unity. Humans and Rhina together could achieve more than either could alone. In that moment, Aaron understood that the coming days would bring new challenges. The raiders were persistent, clever, and determined. But the colony had a new strength, an alliance between human and alien wolf girl that could not be broken. Aaron felt ready for whatever came next, confident that they could protect their home, their people, and each other. Rhina rested beside him, a silent guardian of the forest and the colony. Aaron looked at her, gratitude and admiration filling his heart. Together they had faced the storm and emerged victorious, and together they would continue to defend the colony, explore the forest, and strengthen the bond that had begun in the shadows and tested in battle. The night passed quietly, but Aaron knew the journey was far from over. The raiders had retreated, but they would return. The colony had survived its greatest test yet, and the bond between human and wolf girl had been forged in fire. Aran was ready to face the future with Rhina by his side, knowing that their courage, unity, and trust could overcome any challenge. The stars shone brightly above, a reminder that even in the darkest times, hope. The morning after the battle was quiet. Smoke from the previous day's fight still lingered at the edges of the forest, but the colony was alive with movement. Settlers worked together to repair buildings, clear debris, and tend to minor injuries. Aaron moved among them, offering guidance, encouragement, and reassurance. The air was filled with a mixture of relief and determination. They had survived the raiders' attack, and the bond between humans and Rhina had been proven stronger than anyone had imagined. Rhina watched from the forest's edge, her glowing amber eyes scanning the surroundings. She was alert, muscles coiled, and ready for any sign of danger. The settlers had begun to understand her presence not as a threat, but as a blessing. Children cautiously approached her, drawn to her silver fur and intelligent eyes, while adults nodded in respect, acknowledging her role in protecting the colony. Aaron felt a sense of pride and warmth. Rhina was no longer a stranger. She had become a part of their lives, a symbol of courage and unity. Aaron approached her carefully. "They are starting to trust you," he said softly. Rhina's ears twitched and she let out a low, approving growl. She stepped closer to him, brushing against his arm. "Trust grows," she said in her broken but clear human speech. Aaron nodded, feeling the truth in her words. The bond between them had deepened through battle, preparation, and shared purpose. They had proven that humans and Rhina could work together to overcome even the most formidable threats. The day was spent rebuilding and reinforcing the colony. Aaron and Rhina worked side by side, moving supplies, teaching settlers defensive techniques, and preparing for any future attacks. Aaron explained strategies for using the forest to their advantage, while Rhina demonstrated her instincts and agility. The settlers listened intently, absorbing every lesson. Their fear had been replaced with confidence, and their gratitude toward Aaron and Rhina was evident in every action. By afternoon, Aaron led a small group to the outskirts of the colony. They needed to inspect the areas damaged during the battle and ensure no raiders had left behind traps or devices. Rhina moved silently beside him, her senses alert to the smallest disturbance. The forest seemed alive with energy, responding to her presence. Aaron realized that she was not just strong and fast. She had a deep connection to the world around her. She could sense dangers humans could not even imagine. As they moved through the trees, Aaron asked Rhina about her people again. She told him stories of ancient forests, of her kind living in harmony with nature, protecting the land and its creatures. She described how her people had been nearly destroyed by invaders who sought to conquer their worlds. Aaron listened carefully, realizing how much wisdom and experience she carried. He felt honored to be trusted with this knowledge and determined to help her protect what remained of her legacy. Rhina stopped suddenly, ears perked and tail stiff. She signaled Aaron to be quiet. From a distance, they saw movement, small figures approaching cautiously. Aaron held his hand up, motioning for the settlers behind him to stay calm. The figures emerged from the trees, and Aaron recognized them as neighboring colonists who had been out scouting. They had witnessed the raiders' retreat and came to ensure their home was safe. Aaron smiled, relieved to see familiar faces. Rhina let out a soft growl, a sound that conveyed approval. The forest was quiet again. The danger passed for now. Returning to the colony, Aaron and Rhina were greeted warmly by the settlers. People clapped and cheered, not just for their victory, but for the unity and trust that had grown among them. Aaron felt a deep sense of satisfaction. The colony had survived, yes, but more importantly, they had learned the value of courage, strategy, and partnership. Rhina's presence had been the catalyst for this change. Aaron realized that she had not only saved lives but had inspired hope, teaching them that strength came from working together. As evening fell, Aaron and Rhina walked together to a quiet clearing near the forest. The sun dipped below the horizon, casting a golden light across the trees. Aaron looked at her, reflecting on the events of the past days. They had faced fear, danger, and uncertainty, yet they had come through stronger and more united. He realized that being claimed by Rhina was more than a bond. It was a partnership built on trust, respect, and mutual reliance. He understood that this connection would guide both of them in the days ahead. Rhina sat beside him, her amber eyes fixed on the horizon. "You beam stay?" she asked, her voice soft and questioning. Aaron smiled gently. "Yes," he replied. "I will stay. We will protect this place together." She nudged him with her head, a gesture of approval and affection. In that moment, Aaron felt a profound sense of belonging. He was no longer just a scout or a defender. He was a part of something larger, a guardian of the colony and a companion to Rhina. That night, the settlers gathered around a central fire, sharing stories of the battle, rebuilding efforts, and the courage they had witnessed. Aaron and Rhina watched from the edge of the clearing, observing the sense of community that had grown stronger through adversity. Children played nearby, unafraid of the wolf girl who had once been a mystery and a source of fear. Adults spoke quietly of gratitude and respect, acknowledging that the survival of their home was due in large part to the partnership between human and alien. Aaron reflected on the lessons he had learned. Courage was not the absence of fear, but the decision to act despite it. Strength was not only physical, but also strategic and emotional. trust and unity could overcome challenges that seemed impossible. And most importantly, bonds formed through mutual respect and shared purpose could create hope in even the darkest times. Rhina had taught him these lessons, and together they had proven their truth. As the firelight flickered across the clearing, Aaron and Rhina returned to their hollow in the forest. The night was calm, filled with the sounds of nocturnal creatures and the gentle rustle of leaves. Aaron felt a sense of peace, knowing that the colony was safe for now, and that they had laid the foundation for a stronger, more united community. Rhina lay beside him, a silent guardian and loyal companion. He reached out and touched her fur gently, feeling the warmth and strength that had saved the colony and inspired its people. Days passed, and the colony continued to rebuild. Aaron and Rhina remained close, guiding settlers, training new recruits, and ensuring that the defenses were stronger than ever. The bond between them became an example to the colony. People began to see that cooperation between species could achieve incredible results. Trust, courage, and unity became guiding principles for the community, and Aaron and Rhina were at the center of it. One evening, Aaron and Rhina climbed a small hill overlooking the colony. The sun was setting, casting long shadows across the fields and buildings. Aaron looked down at the people moving below, repairing structures and tending to crops. He realized that this place, once vulnerable and fragile, had become resilient and strong. The colony had survived because they had embraced unity and courage, guided by the partnership between human and alien wolf girl. He felt a deep sense of fulfillment. Rhina moved closer to him, her amber eyes glowing softly in the fading light. "Home. Safe," she said, her voice quiet but full of meaning. Aaron nodded. "Yes, safe and stronger than before. We did this together." She pressed her head against his shoulder, a gesture of trust and companionship. Aaron smiled, understanding that this bond was more than protection or strategy. It was friendship, loyalty, and mutual respect, a connection that would guide them through any challenge. The colony flourished in the weeks that followed. Settlers learned to work with the forest rather than against it, using natural resources wisely and respecting the land. Aaron continued to teach strategies, while Rhina guided them with her instincts and knowledge. Together they created a community that was strong, prepared, and united. The memory of the raiders lingered, but the fear had been replaced with confidence. Humans and Rhina had proven that cooperation, courage, and trust could overcome even the most dangerous threats. One night, as the stars twinkled above, Aaron and Rhina sat together by a quiet stream near the forest. The water reflected the light of the stars, creating a serene and peaceful atmosphere. Aaron looked at Rhina, feeling gratitude and admiration. "We did it," he said softly. Rhina's ears twitched, and she let out a low, approving growl. "Together," she replied. Aaron nodded, understanding that their bond had not only saved the colony but had created a future where humans and her kind could coexist in harmony. The forest was calm, and the colony slept peacefully under the watchful eyes of its protectors. Aaron realized that being claimed by Rhina was a gift. It was a bond that went beyond fear or control. It was about trust, loyalty, and shared purpose. He felt a deep connection to her, to the forest, and to the colony he had helped protect. Together they had faced danger, uncertainty, and challenges, and emerged stronger than ever. In the days that followed, Aaron and Rhina continued to explore the forest, learning its secrets and understanding its power. They taught the settlers to live in harmony with nature, to respect the land, and to trust in their own abilities. The colony thrived, protected by the courage of its people and the guidance of the wolf girl who had chosen Aaron as her companion. The bond between them became a symbol of hope, resilience, and unity, inspiring all who witnessed it.